Welcome to New Sky TV, Explosive. Can contract couples really get married? Guo Yuxin and Yuhang's when the pretending to be a couple agreement becomes the official seal on a marriage certificate. Guo Yuxin and Yuhang expose the biggest lie in sweet romance dramas. The highest level of romance isn't a surprise from the sky, but someone secretly writing a script for your future and then clumsily living it out in every ordinary day. From the soaked sleeves when handing over an umbrella to the cold buns eaten while staying by your side, the most touching thing about this relationship is never the contract itself. Can contract couples really get married? Why are Guo Yuxin and Yuhang in that 1%? I'm probably not the only one who saw Guo Yuxin and Yuhang's wedding invitation. I looked at that invitation several times. Printed on an A4 sheet of paper, it wasn't some gold-embossed double happiness symbol. The beginning clearly read pretending to be a couple agreement. The most amazing thing is that this fake contract is now becoming the official seal on a real marriage certificate. To be honest, my first reaction was, impossible, this script is too idealistic. But upon calming down and reflecting on their story again, I realized they weren't playing the love at first sight card at all. It's a classic unrequited love turned into reality, yes, but the core is something much more substantial. Today, I'll venture to say something that might offend some. What we lack isn't love stories, but rather the ability to turn those formulas into daily routines. Guo Yuxin and Yuhang's success stems precisely from their inadvertently exposing the biggest lie in sweet romance dramas. A sudden, unexpected romance is far less valuable than a carefully planned, albeit clumsy, but genuinely premeditated, strategy. From that moment on, the story took a completely different turn. Many people think the highlight of love is the embrace the moment a confession is successful, but the real turning point often happens at the end of a deserted corridor. The hospital lights at 3 in the morning were cold and pale, the smell of disinfectant was pungent, and all the romantic filters were stripped away by reality. Guo Yuxin stood there, watching Yuhang squatting by the wall, his coat draped over his knees, the cold buns already hard and dry, but he didn't even bother to drink water, only staring at the numbers jumping on the monitor. That wasn't acting, that was instinct. If someone is just pretending to like you, they will calculate the costs. If they truly care, they will only calculate time. How long has she been without sleep? When will the doctor make rounds? How many more days can the bills be delayed? That night, the shell of the so-called contract completely cracked. For the first time, she realized that he wasn't completing a collaboration, but taking on a responsibility. Many people will ask, why didn't he say it sooner? Why did he have to go through all that trouble, using a fake boyfriend as a cover? The answer is actually quite cruel, because she was too proud and too strong-willed. Giving money directly is charity, confessing directly is pressure. He chose the slowest, most foolish way, breaking down "I want to take care of you" into countless just doing it casually. She never asked who turned on the hallway light he set. She pretended not to notice the extra late-night snack he just happened to buy. She said why bother while saying he stood in the pouring rain for 2 hours, yet she kept the umbrella in the most conspicuous spot in the entryway. His true, long-planned scheme was never publicized. Later, when his grandmother was discharged from the hospital and the bills piled up, Guo Yuxin asked him for the first time, "What are you after?" Yuhang paused for a few seconds, then said something very clumsy, "So that I'll be qualified to stand next to you in the future. Not I love you, not I can't live without you, but qualified." These 3 words carried more weight than any sweet talk. Because they acknowledged the gap, and they acknowledged the effort. He didn't portray himself as a savior, but placed himself on par with her. "I'm not here to save you, I'm here to be with you." From then on, the atmosphere between them subtly changed. The chance encounters at the library decreased, because there was no longer any need to feign coincidence. In the cafeteria, they no longer sat across a table from each other, but naturally sat on the same side. At the building entrance after his night shift, he no longer made excuses to appear, but waited openly. The so-called contract had long since expired. It's just that neither of them tacitly tore up that piece of paper until one day, she took out that pretending to be a couple agreement, pointing to the supplementary clause at the bottom. If genuine feelings develop, both parties may negotiate an extension. She smiled and asked, "How about extending it for a lifetime?" Yuhang didn't prepare a ring, no fireworks, and no applause from onlookers. He simply took a deep breath, folded the A4 paper neatly, and said seriously, "This time, don't write a contract, write a promise." You see, the highest level of romance is never about extravagance, but about upgrading. The reason their story is so moving isn't because of explosive plot twists, but because of its solid logic. Liking someone doesn't happen suddenly, it's accumulated little by little. Being moved isn't accidental, it's the natural progression after long-term companionship. All those years he repaired lights, endured rain, and stayed up all night were silent sacrifices. By the time she finally turned back, he had already paved the way for their future. So when that fake contract finally became the official seal of their marriage certificate, outsiders found that unbelievable, but they simply breathed a sigh of relief. All the pretending was for the day when they could be legitimately serious. This isn't a fairy tale, it's patience. It's not a routine, it's responsibility. And the sweetest part is that they never uttered a single earth-shattering vow, yet they lived out the words years in advance. But what's truly ruthless isn't the seal, but their understanding of the essence of relationships. Many people, seeing contracts turning into true love, immediately try to copy the template. Is it safer to just sign an agreement and maintain boundaries? Is it safer to discuss rules first and then invest to reduce risk? But reality has already provided the answer. Treating love as a gambling agreement will only lead to mutual destruction. The law doesn't deny form, but motive. And their difference lies precisely in their motive. Yuhang's initial proposal of a fake boyfriend wasn't about locking in profits or testing returns. He didn't even include an exit mechanism. The agreement was more like a pass, allowing him to stand by her side, to care reasonably, and to give with dignity. It wasn't a bargaining chip, but a stepping stone, not a calculation, but restrained. What truly determined the future was their daily life afterward. During the startup phase, cash flow was tight, and the company nearly went bankrupt. Friends advised them to keep their accounts separate to avoid emotions influencing decisions. But they made the most risky choice: joint guarantees, joint signatures, and joint debt sharing. That moment felt more like a promise than wedding vows. Because a wedding only requires words, while debts need to be repaid one by one. The names in Hang isn't just sweet. It combines two surnames and binds risk in the future together. What did the business registration stamp signify? It meant that from then on, they would share not only emotions but also legal responsibilities. The initial fake couple agreement was stamped not for romance, but as a memento of that most clumsy yet most genuine beginning. Many people envy their turnaround, but overlook the long period of adjustment that followed. She wasn't without her doubts. The fiercest argument in the early stages of their business was about scaling up. Yuhang wanted to be aggressive, she wanted to be conservative. They argued until dawn that night, neither willing to back down. In many relationships that started with a contract, old grievances would have been brought up. We only agreed to a partnership. But they didn't. They discussed data, the market, and cash flow, not emotional gains or losses. After that night, they restructured their roles. She took charge of branding and content, he took charge of channels and operations. Their relationship didn't become a weakness, but rather a source of confidence for their collaboration. This is the true logic behind contracts turning into genuine feelings. Rules aren't meant to restrict love, but to protect respect. Boundaries aren't indifference, but maturity. So, is it feasible? The answer is, the model may not be replicable, but the attitude can. If an agreement is based on defensiveness, calculation, or speculation, it will never become love. But if it's just a gentle excuse to bring two people closer in a more dignified way, then it's no longer a transaction, but a tentative act of courage. Later, someone asked Yuxin, "When did you know it was him?" She thought for a long time and said it wasn't that night at the hospital, nor the day of the company registration, but some ordinary morning. She overslept and rushed out the door to find breakfast already packed and placed at the door, with a sticky note next to it: "Walk slowly, don't run." There was no amount, no terms, no liability for breach of contract. Just the simplest of instructions. You see, love ultimately stands firm not because of contracts, but because of the accumulation of details. When all the rituals fade away, what remains is two people still choosing each other in the storms of reality. That initial fake agreement was like a spark. What truly ignited it into a flame were countless ordinary yet steadfast days. So stop asking, can a contract turn into true love? The question to ask is, when the contract expires, are you still willing to continue? Thank you for watching the video. See you in the next video. Thank you.